Hello students, welcome back to another video. If you're interested in getting tips as to how you can pass your CSEC Social Studies examination, you need to continue watching this video. Alright, let's go. And our first tip is read the instruction carefully. I know that sometimes we get anxious in exams and we tend to skip over the instruction and go straight into answering questions. However, it is very important that you read the instructions. Take at least 2 to 3 minutes and ensure that you read all the instructions so as to not make any mistakes. Some common mistakes that students usually make after completing their social studies exam, they'll find out that they did all the questions from section A, for example, when they should only do one question. They answered 6 questions when they should have only answered 5 questions. So it is important that to avoid these mistakes, you read the instruction carefully. Okay, students? Point 2, go through the paper. After reading the instructions, go through the entire booklet, look at all the questions, and I always encourage my students to put a tick beside all the questions that you are familiar with or the questions that are showing content that you think you will be able to answer the questions. Put a tick beside these questions. Not to say that these are all the questions that you will be doing, but at least as you navigate answering the questions, you have idea as to what questions you are most familiar with. As soon as you see a question that is familiar, start writing little pointers beside it. You have not started answering any questions as yet. You are just writing pointers beside the questions that you are familiar with, so that when you are ready to write, especially the essay questions, you will have an idea of what you are going to answer and how you're going to answer these questions. When answering questions, do the following. 1, so you're ready, you have read the instruction, you have gone through the entire booklet, you have ticked the questions that you are familiar with, you have written little pointers beside these questions. It is now time for you to answer these questions. So the first thing we need to do, read the questions carefully. Before writing any answer, read the question carefully. And I cannot overemphasize that. Answer all questions in complete sentences. I know that I have been receiving questions from students asking if it is important for them to really answer the questions in complete sentences. And what do I mean by answer the questions in complete sentences? So I am just going to address these questions. Let's just look at this example. You're in the examination and you see a question. The first question says, list 3 examples of family types found in the Caribbean. I am now going to show you 2 ways that a student may answer this question. One of the way is correct, the other is incorrect. 3 examples of a family are nuclear family, extended family, and single parent family. Another student answer this question by writing nuclear family, extended family, and single parent family. Based on both answers, which student do you think answered this question in complete sentence? If your answer is student A, you are definitely correct. 3 examples of a family are. Another way that you could have answered this question in complete sentence is by saying nuclear family, extended family, and single parent family are examples of family types found in the Caribbean. So to ensure that you get your full marks, answer all the questions in a sentence. Start the answers with a sentence. Okay, students? Tip number 3 when answering questions. After reading the question, you need to identify the verb in the question. What is this question asking me to do? Once you are able to identify the verb in the question, you will know how much information you need to write. And I have an example here for you. Explain 3 factors that contributes to juvenile delinquency. Looking at this question, I need to find what is a verb in this question. And the verb is explain. The verb is explain. When we explain something, what are we doing? We're going in depth in proving our point. Okay. Based on this question, which is asking us to explain 3 factors, we cannot just write the answer. 3 factors that contribute to juvenile delinquency are lack of love, poor parenting, depression, and that's it. You will not receive 6 marks for doing that. You now have to explain, go in depth in answering each of the factors that you have written down. So if one of your answer is depression, you'll have to explain, what do you mean by depression? What do you mean when you say that depression contributes to juvenile delinquency? So you'll have to explain that. What do you mean that poor parenting contributes to juvenile delinquency? You have to explain that answer, right? So when explaining, you have to go in depth in clarifying your answer to ensure that whoever is reading your paper, they can fully understand what you're saying. So as I always tell students, when explaining, there's no right or wrong answer, but we look at that in another slide. Another question, let us look at another example. List 2 examples of norms. What is a verb in this question? The verb is list. When you're asked to list anything in the examination, the only thing that you need to write is your answer in complete sentence. You do not need to write any examples. You do not need to go in depth in clarifying anything. Just write your answer. List 2 examples of norms. 2 examples of norms are, and you write your answers. That's it. No examples to clarify anything. You don't need to go in depth with anything. All right. Tip number 4, ask yourself, after identifying the verb in the question, you need to ask yourself, what's the value for this question? How much do I need to write? The verb also will tell you how much you need to write, but the value of the question, the marks that the question carry, can also assist you in knowing how much you need to write when answering that question. For example, explain 3 factors that contribute to juvenile delinquency, 6 marks. In this question, the value for this question is 6 marks. You cannot just write your 3 factors and expect to get 6 marks. That would have give you like maybe 2 marks for just writing the answer. 2 marks out of the 6. So because it's 6 marks, you'll have to do some explanation. You'll have to explain your answers to get your full 6 marks. And usually when you see a question asking you, especially most questions will just ask you for 3 factors or 3 actions. It won't go to 4. I've never seen it gone to 4. It's usually 3 factors, 3 solutions, 3 actions, etc. It usually carries a value of 6 marks. So the only thing you need to do is for each factor, so you'll write 1 factor that contributes to juvenile delinquency is poor parenting. You write your explanation. What do you mean by poor parenting? Depression, write an explanation. Each explanation for the 3 factors will carry 2 marks, giving you your full 6 marks. Now let's just look at another question that would carry less marks. List 2 examples of norms. The verb in this question is list. It carries a value of 2 marks. So you're not going to write a lot when answering this question. The only thing you need to write are your 2 examples in a sentence, and that's it. 2 examples of norms are, and you list your 2 examples. Again, you do not need to explain anything. It's just 2 marks. Our next tip is, what should I do? And this section we will talk about when writing your essay questions. What should I do? When answering essay type questions, they are usually stated as a problem, and you will have to find solutions to this problem. Usually, you are asked to come up with at least 3 solutions to the problem, right? For example, before I go to the example, I always tell my students, imagine, put yourself in that problem, put yourself in that situation. How would you get out of it? What would you suggest that someone else do to get out of the problem? Sometimes you'll have to move away from what you are taught in class and put yourself in the real world. Make some real life connections, some real world connections in order to answer these essay type questions. So don't be like you're in the exam, you're there writing your essay, you're trying to come up with solutions, you're there trying to try to remember, what did me say? No, you don't have to do that. It's your solutions. There are no right or wrong solutions. As long as you are able to clarify or to justify your solutions, you get your full marks. Okay, so move away from the content when finding solutions and just come up with some real life examples that you can use as solutions. For example, suggest 3 actions citizens of a country may take to ensure that government is held accountable. You're a citizen of a country. I know that you have been watching the news, you are in your communities, you are seeing, you may be hearing your parents talk about some of the things that the government has promised that they would do, some of the things that the MPs in the different constituencies has promised that they're going to do to improve the citizens' lives, to improve standard of living, to improve the country. What would you do as a citizen to ensure that these promises, these goals, these objectives that the government has set for the country comes to pass? What are some of the things that you would do to ensure that they are made accountable for all the promises, for all the things that they say that they are going to do? And you write your answers. I'm thinking using social media to highlight certain things. I'm thinking writing a letter to different mass medias. I'm thinking that maybe I could make a visit to the MP's office to inquire about what is happening, read this that they had promised. I am thinking that we can protest, demonstrate as citizens if we realize that government are not living up to their promises. All right, so you can think outside of the box, think real world situations, and find those solutions and get your full marks. When you're writing your essay questions, you're usually given space to write your actions and explanation. As the question before states, 3 factors that citizens can use to ensure that governments are accountable, are made accountable. Usually on the CSEC paper, they will give you the space to write your different actions. So you'll have a space for action 1, which you will write one way that government may be held accountable is by citizens demonstrating or protesting when they realize that government are not living up to the promises or to the things that they are promised that they will do. Each action that you'll write will carry an explanation, and your explanations will be in different paragraphs. So for the first 3 paragraphs, you'll be writing your actions. For the next 3 paragraphs, you'll be writing your explanations. In your explanation, the only thing that you are doing is that you are now explaining the solutions that you have suggested. How will this solution, how will demonstrating, how will protesting work in ensuring that government become accountable? How will visiting the MP's office ensure that government are held accountable? You're just explaining the 3 actions that you have written. When writing your essay, do not write the action and the explanation in the same paragraph. For example, suggest 3 actions that farmers in a community may take to help reduce water pollution. And this is a perfect example of what I was saying to you in the previous slides, where on your paper you will see the action 1, where you will write your action 2, action 3, and the other 3 paragraphs, they will be your explanation for each action. So this is an example. Action 1. One action that farmers may take to help reduce water pollution is educating themselves on best practices that can help to prevent water pollution. They can educate themselves by going on social media, reading magazines, watching television programs about farming, etc. If you notice in this action, look at how I wrote my action. There's no explanation. I am not explaining anything. I am not clarifying why I believe that farmers educating themselves on best practices will work. The only thing I am doing in this paragraph is just to tell what farmers can do. So this is what I mean by do not confuse or do not write your explanation and your action in the same paragraph. Because by the time you reach to the point, the paragraph where you're supposed to explain your actions, you will not have anything else to write and you will lose the marks for the explanation. So again, the only thing I did is to write my action, and I give an example of how they can educate themselves in order to prevent water pollution. That's it. That one action is 2 marks. Explanation. This action, this strategy will work because when farmers educate themselves on best farming practices, they will know what are the causes of water pollution, how it can affect their crops, and also ways in which they can prevent water pollution if it occurs. Now, even though I did not write any examples in my explanation, this is where you can also incorporate an example. For example, of a best practice that farmers could use to prevent water pollution is crop rotation. And you write that in your explanation. One example is crop rotation. If you want to explain how crop rotation works in curtailing water pollution, you could also do this in your explanation to get your full marks. All right. I also said that this strategy will also help because they will be able to also share what they have learned with other farmers living in the community so as to prevent water pollution. Finally, I don't want to make this video too long. There are no right or wrong answers, especially when you're writing your essay type questions. You just have to ensure that you are able to justify your answers. CXE does not have any solutions written down anywhere. It is your solutions. As long as you are able to explain the solutions that you have given, you should be able to receive your full marks. Okay, students, so all the best in your examination. If you have any question, leave a comment in the comment section, and remember to subscribe, like, and turn on your notification bell. Students, also remember to watch those ads that appears on the video. Okay, guys, so that I can continue making educational videos for students sitting their CSEC examination.